In this recording, I'm going to read just a little bit from the second chapter of my book, Mindful Ethnography, Mind, Heart, and Activity for Transformative Social Research. In the previous tracks, I read from the introduction, the motivations for writing the book, described some of those, and the first chapter, which is the headiest, weightiest chapter that I struggle quite a bit with. But now we're into the actual doing of field work and applying this mindful approach to ethnography at different stages. So chapter 2, I basically discuss some of the ways that we can enter our field sites and see them for the first time with a little bit more open hearts and open minds. And to do this, in this chapter, I reflect on my own experiences with ethnography through the years and ways I wasn't always particularly mindful. I realize now that we only have our first impressions of any field site once, and that first impressions can tell us a great deal because we see things with relatively fresh eyes, which approaches the sort of Zen beginner mind, even if we're never really beginners' minds, but relatively so. And they can reveal to us what we first notice and what we miss. The first things we notice, the first things we name, often turn out to be the things that are most important. I learned that working with Anne Phoenix, a social psychologist in London, who does narrative analysis and interviews with oral histories. And she points out that it's the beginnings of the stories, the first things people name, that often turn out to be the important themes that people return to. Well, that's true in field work as well. We are the instruments of our work, and what we first notice, what we first attend to, what is salient to us, might tell us a great deal about where our own attention goes. It also will tell us something about what we miss. Writing down our initial impressions is a way to get started, but it's also a way to bring to our own awareness what is important to us. So in the chapter, I discuss some ways of doing this. I have a little box that discusses reflexivity and reflectivity and my debates about the meanings of those words, and the importance, though, of bringing a reflective, or if you will, reflexive stance to our ethnographic work. I suggest that field notes is largely about making our own thinking visible to ourselves, and that field notes are thinking notes, and that we have to not scrutinize them with the same rigor that we give to final representations. We need to write freely what we think and feel, but why? In order to make our own thinking visible to ourselves and to use that awareness to enhance our work. I suggest that the notes can show us something about what we see, what of all the many things there are to see that we notice, but also what we miss. I suggest ways that we can try to see a little more, to see and attend to what's not there, but not just falling into the trap of focusing on what's not there, but noticing absences can help us to understand what we thought we would see or expected to see, and thus to dig deeper and question what it is we assumed. Noticing what's not there will only serve us in this way if we engage mindfully and reflectively enough to notice and to question our every assumption, rather than being blinded by what we have already decided is true. I draw some examples from my own field work and also from work I've done guiding undergraduate students in entering a field site in Los Angeles, and what they write about, what they notice on their first visits, and comparing that they see very different things. They evaluate things in quite different ways, and the comparison can help us to expand our ways of seeing. I share some of the field note guidelines that I give students. I talk a little bit about the issue of evaluating and interpreting versus seeing what's really there. but also that even seeing what's really there is a misnomer, because we can never see everything that is there, and we often tend to rely mostly on our visual senses. So there I connect with the work of sensory ethnographers like Sarah Pink to suggest ways of enhancing other sensory modalities. Categorical thinking. Here I take from the discussion of chapter 1 to consider how categories of the culture may drive what and how we see. And I have a whole discussion of that. And throughout, I return to the notion of the triad of heart, mind, and activity, using what we see, hear, smell, taste, and sense, tuning into our inner processes as well as the outer world, going inward, going outward, to pay attention to our thoughts, our feelings, as we move into these new sites. All right. A short activity. If you're preparing to go into a new site, sit for a minute. As always, with your feet on the ground, anchored in this place and space and time, this moment in your life, connecting with who you are, what you bring into the setting, and the histories of experiences that have unfolded in this place before you. You might do this when you first arrive at your field site, sit in your car for a minute, or find a quiet place to sit. Take those deep breaths. Notice your own mind chatter. Slow down your senses. Center yourself so that you can be fully present, or as fully present as you can, when you walk into this field site. Notice what you feel, not just what you think. Are you anxious, excited, nervous, calm, curious? What tells you that you feel these things? Where do you feel in your stomach, your throat, your heart, your head? Notice the memories that swim into your consciousness. What parts of your own past are you bringing into this new context? Who are you as you enter this space? Check in with your own thoughts and your feelings, not in order to heighten or privilege you, because some might say, isn't that what we're trying to escape from fieldwork? Aren't we striving to move past the narcissistic gaze in order to see the world from others' perspectives? But the fact is, we are thinking and feeling all the time, whether we realize it or not. So becoming more aware of what we think and feel may actually help us to detach from ourselves, or at least to notice how what we bring into this context shapes our understandings, and what may get in the way of more fully seeing and hearing others. So I would suggest that you do this every day before you walk into your field site. Take a few minutes to orient yourself, to breathe, to be there, to let go of something. Worries, fears, annoyances, stress, anticipation. Leave the emotional baggage behind, or at least just hold it lightly, so that you can be open to the newness of what you will see. And in the book, I continue this with some more suggestions for when you first walk into the site, and how to just be attuned to what you notice, what you think, what you feel, what you sense. Capture it all. Don't edit your thoughts. Don't try to organize your thinking. But put extra effort into seeing your site for the first time. And in the tradition of anthropology, of ethnography, this may help you to make the familiar a little more strange. All right, in the next reading I'll share a little bit from the next chapter in the book, which focuses on once you're in the field, issues of getting along, getting in, getting along. Thanks for listening, and as always, thanks to my son for the music.